That brings us to a question from Assembly Member Whittle, which is a mayor for all Londoners.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your question, Senator Whittle, and thank you for your work over the past 5 years. You've been a passionate advocate for the issues you feel strongly about, and although we don't see eye to eye on that as a policy, I appreciate the manner in which you've approached the work.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for those gracious words at the beginning. I've very much enjoyed my time. I would ask you, you say, and you did say very clearly, and it was your running slogan, you're going to be a mayor for all Londoners. Just after you were elected, we had the referendum. And one of the biggest minorities in this capital were people who voted to leave. Over 40% of people voted in London to leave. Do you think that you have been a mayor for them in all of your actions in the years since, in essentially trying to get the referendum negated?
I'm not sure that's quite fair, Peter, because initially I accepted the result of the referendum and I said we've got to make it work. What happened was when Theresa May came back with the shoddy deal she did, what I said was this deal is a million miles away from what the Brexiteers promised. And in those circumstances, we should put it back to the public in relation to, is this what they were voting for? But we've left the EU now, the transfer period has ended, and I accept the verdict of the British public, and I want to make it work. And so I'm not keen to look backwards. I want to make Brexit a success for our country because that's where we are.
We've got to look backwards, Mr. Mayor, because you were very clear at the beginning, and here we are at the end of a term. You were very clear at the end, you're going to be a mayor for all Londoners. If you were thinking of that 40% of people who voted to leave, you had a very funny way of showing it, I would say. Could you take this opportunity, maybe, particularly with the situation in London with vaccine, etc. You once called the EU to me when I asked you a question, your beloved EU. Do you still think it's your beloved EU when you look at the way they've been behaving over the vaccine, the diabolical politics that they have been playing? Do you condemn that?
I think it's possible to be a proud European, to be disappointed.
I'm not a proud European, Mr. Mayor. It's not a question of that.
Can you allow Mr. Mayor to answer the question, please?
It's okay. It's my fault. Sorry, I didn't give you a chance. So I think it's possible to be a proud European, to be disappointed to be left the European Union, and to think the EU have got it completely wrong in their behaviour in relation to the vaccines. Not least yesterday, the threats being made by the EU President, I think, are wrong. And I think what's important is that we put on record our thanks to those in our country who made the vaccine rollout so successful, not least the Government Minister Nadine Zahawi, who I spoke to this week.
Mr. Mayor, coming just right up today, if you don't want to look backwards, we're coming right up today to your Commission for Diversity in the Public Realm. The latest poll on that shows that 42% of Londoners do not back it. They think it's a bad idea. If you want to be mayor for all Londoners, you should scrap this. It's a terrible idea.
Well, I think the most important poll that I'm focused on is the one on May the 6th, once the campaign begins. I'm quite clear, though. I think when I look at the public realm in our city, it doesn't properly reflect the contribution made by diverse Londoners, women, people disabled, black Londoners, Asian minority ethnic Londoners, those from the LGBT plus community, and I'm unclear why you're so frightened
I'm
to
not
the public realm that properly reflects our diversity. What are you scared of, Peter?
I knew you'd say frightened. It's not a question of that. You are spinning it in a very, very positive way about representation, the implicit thing being that it's in the future. This was born at a time, and you were very clear about it at the time, it's about removal of statues.
No.
You said it in your press release when you said that London was born of a bygone era, which would indeed be history, Mr. Mayor. The fact is that I have never known people be so demoralised and dismayed by this attack on not just London's heritage, but on Britain's heritage. This is Britain's capital, Mr. Mayor. I mean, it's not...
Let Mr. Mayor answer.
There are people like you, including you probably, who were unhappy when we put up a statue of a woman in Parliament Square.
No, I don't.
Parliament didn't come falling down. Parliament's still there. And it didn't mean that somehow, Winston Churchill or others were in some way belittled by having a statue of a woman there.
Not at all.
Similarly, Peter, I don't think anybody else will feel frightened by street names, by murals, by buildings, even, dare I say, statues.
I'm not frightened.
Diversity.
You talked about removing them, and when you originally announced this, it was the height of all of those demonstrations. I think you're kind of wheeling back a little bit on this now. But the fact is that London is Britain's capital. So what happens here and what you have power over to do has resonance and means an awful lot to people around the country. You're talking about this country's history and heritage. You did say about removal of statues, Mr. Mayor, because I remember in the press release, I went over it with a fine-tooth comb. 42% of Londoners do not want this, Mr. Mayor. If you want to be a mayor for Londoners, please scrap it. It's a terrible idea.